Yes.
Question. I've known them 4 or 5 times.
Are these young instructors or old instructors?
I'd say they're probably leaning towards the younger side. 30.
30. They're just stupid. Is it a male instructor or a female one?
Yeah.
Cute or ugly? That's, I mean, there are lots of reasons for people being the way they are.
I started looking like, wow. I started annoying him, so he's not going to.
The best way, and this is something that you guys can use against me as well. The best way to approach or email an instructor, hello, just in case you don't hear from them, is include the dean's name as well. CC the dean, and just in case you don't hear anything from them, just email the dean directly.
Yeah, that's what I.
Yeah, just so you know, I'm taking this class with Amir Sabzavari. He told us that over 60 is an A. If they give him bags of coffee, it's like an A. So, yeah.
Make sure that you know that.
Yeah.
I want my
Anyone else? That's it? Olivia?
Would you say it's a near death experience to appreciate life?
I think, Olivia, all of us in this class have had moments of inspiration, and they can be life-changing. But the problem with inspiration is that it revolves around feelings, intense feelings and emotions. It can give you wings. I think inspiration by itself is not very difficult. It's actually this kind of like, if you like barbecuing, for example, go home tonight, get some charcoal, put some lighter fluids on it, and then put a match to it. And within like a second, it just goes up in flames. That's inspiration. But if you want to actually barbecue things, you have to stand there with a fan or a blow dryer for like, 15, 20 minutes and just go like this until, you'll find red spots inside the charcoal as well. And once that happens, you can just walk away because that tiny red spot will catch the whole thing, eventually. Inspiration is like a spark. If you want it to be continuous, you need to stand by it. It's kind of like a relationship. You may like someone, but if you actually want to hang out with them more often, you have to kind of harass them. And you need to harass inspiration. Otherwise, they'll just evaporate. So, having said that, I've forgotten your question completely. You can't.
That's a good way to think of it. Harassing inspiration.
Well, first of all, you can't do it on your own. It's kind of like, I'm inspired to quit drinking. And all of us in this class have certain habits, addictions we don't really like. It may be a trauma from your past. It may be you want to quit like smoking or drinking. And there are moments where you kind of just look at your budget and you realize, why am I being so stupid burning money away like this or drinking this way? And then you try to change, and you can actually change for maybe a few days if you're lucky, okay? But then you relapse because inspiration is like a brand new seed. Habits are old. They've been there for a long, long time. If you want that inspiration to continue, you need to change a few things in your life. You need to kind of hang out with people who don't smoke, for example, or don't drink, or maybe they have, drank in the past, but now they're seriously quitting or want to quit. In other words, you just need a support system. Without a support system, you can't do much. If, for example, you are single, and you're single and you want to find yourself a companion, don't hang out with single people. And don't hang out with people who happen to be in relationships that are dysfunctional. Okay? Always hang out with people who are married or have a very, very healthy and functional relationship. That, what it does for you is, at first, it makes you feel guilty for who and what you are, and that is a good guilt. You know, it's like you trying to hang out with Einstein. Well, if you just continue being a loser, Einstein is going to walk away from you. If, on the other hand, you keep asking questions about physics, about metaphysics, about violin, about what it means to be a Jew, all these things, it'll keep Einstein around. Okay? So if you hang out with people who are married and have been married for a long time and know the complexities of relationship, how difficult they are, then what that'll do is, and you gotta hang out with them quite often. You need to kind of see that the man is in the kitchen cooking, cleaning once in a while, the woman doing the same thing. They have conversations, dialogue, sitting and having food together. And that inspires you, that you want a man or you want a relationship just like this. If, on the other hand, you know, your friends to some extent are just not very mature, and you guys are all hanging out together, smoking and drinking, well, that's the man you're going to find. And that's not, and the problem with relationships when you're young, you don't have long-term plans. You're just not there mentally. Imagine that you want to buy a car, okay? Now, you can buy a car for $2,000, you can buy a car for $20,000, and you want to go to Los Angeles. Well, if you buy a $2,000 car, there's a good chance that every 10 minutes, you're going to be stranded in the middle of the highway. And by the time you get to Los Angeles, it'll be like 2 years from now, okay? If, on the other hand, you buy a car that's $20,000, you may suffer a flat tire, sure, you know. But for the most part, it's going to carry you to Los Angeles in about 8 to 10 hours, okay, with or without traffic. Now, hello. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So I think if you want a relationship, you should look at men, if you're a heterosexual, as a car. What kind of a car do you want? Do you want a guy who has a past unprocessed? Do you want a guy, and with a past that's traumatic and unprocessed, you have a lot of raw emotions. Now, you may be at a place in your life where you want to just mother a man, you know? That's an issue you have to overcome, because as long as you have that issue about you, you know, then you're going to only find men who are unhealthy. Okay. And there is nothing wrong with being unhealthy, because all of us are trying to work things out, you know, inwardly, outwardly. I forgot, so there you have it. Anyone else? E? Nothing? Sada? Amelia?
How do you know if you're making the right decision?
Regarding what?
In general, like whether you're like life-changing decisions. Let's say, for example, someone wants to stay in the home or if they should leave, or if they should be with someone or leave a relationship.
I'm sorry, can you say this again?
How do you know if you're making the right decision?
So, there is a story that you may find interesting in the Gospel of Luke. It's called the Prodigal Son. It's a very, very famous story. So what you have is this young kid, okay? And what is it that young people have? Young people have dreams, young people have hope, young people are untested by life, young people are vigorous, they're strong, they're imaginative, they recover really, really, really quickly. And young people always assume that they are exempt from the slings and arrows of life. Okay? Now you're going to fall in love and you're going to say, Amir, I have found my companion. He's my soulmate. I keep telling you, that dude is wrong for you. And you're going to say to me, no, you're wrong and I'm right. Okay? That's what young people do. So this young kid goes to his father and says, Dad, you know, you're going to give me some of your money, like 50,000. But for me to get that money, I have to wait till you die. That's my inheritance. Why don't you just give that money to me now? And the father doesn't sit him down, doesn't say, let's go to Pete's Coffee. Let me tell you a few things about the importance of money, the value of being young and making the right decisions. Because fathers or old people who are seasoned with experience know that young people have concrete in their head. That you really have to be a very unique and special 20-year-old to be able to listen to the wisdom of your elders, be it your father, your mother, your grandparents, your elder brother, doesn't really matter. So seeing this in his son, that the son has lost his ability to listen, to hear, to get the message, says, here's the money. Okay. Now that's the best way you can kind of deal with people you love. Because if you don't give them the money, it's kind of like my friend Saeed, Persian. One day his daughter comes home and says, Dad, I want to, I think, go to this party with my friends and smoke. What? Now my friend Saeed used to be in the Iraq war. He was in prison for some political stuff. He walked through the mountains in Pakistan, went to India, went to France, eventually ended up here, worked at a movie theater for a number of years, and eventually became an engineer. Okay. That's how the Persians were in the 1980s. All of us had difficulties in life. So he talked it over with his wife and he said, listen, well, now this guy doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke. Okay. And none of the people in his family do. He says, well, if I say no to him, my daughter, and if I just fight with her and tell her how evil drugs are, she's probably going to do it behind my back. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to tell her, listen, why don't you and I go somewhere? And this is way before dispensaries opened up everywhere like Safeways. Let's go somewhere, let's buy whatever it is that you want. And let's do it safely together, you and I. We'll sit together somewhere in the room, we'll play some music, and we'll smoke. And they did. And after a couple of tries, the daughter said, this is not something I want to do anymore. So when the father comes to realize that this guy desperately needs money, there are a couple of things you can do. You can either tell your son he's stupid, then you can go like be a thief, sell drugs, do all sorts of things, make some money and burn it. Okay? He's going to maybe end up in prison. Who the hell knows? So he says, here's the money. Okay? He doesn't tell him how to spend it because, again, the young kid doesn't have the ability to listen. So the kid goes away, 50,000 in his pocket. And what is it that young people want to do? They want to have fun. Young people don't think too far ahead. You have to commend the 17 and the 16-year-olds in this class. Whether it's their decision or the parents' decision, they know that by the time, if they keep taking these classes, by the time they're like 18 or 19 or 20, they have like 60 college units. And by the time they're like 19, 20, they have their bachelor's. By the time they're 22, they have their master's. By the time they're like 28, they have a PhD. That's a lot of wealth to be given to a 26, 27-year-old. So this kid goes away and has fun with money. Smokes it, drinks it, pawns it, spends it on his friends. At a certain point, your riches vanish. You look yourself in the mirror and you say, it's kind of like in the morning you wake up fresh. By the time it's 9 p.m., you kind of just look weary and exhausted. You want to just collapse. You just don't want to wake up ever again. And so this kid burns all the riches and looks in his pocket. He's got zero. He's got nothing. So he finds some stables. He sleeps on the hay. He hangs out with cows and horses and donkeys. And he says, this is no way to live. Maybe I'll go back to my father. Now, one of the things that happens at this stage is that this young kid repents, kind of begins to understand his mistakes. And it's devastating. He says, had I listened to my father, I would have had 50,000. I could have gone to Washington, bought myself a nice little property, and that 50,000 would now be worth about 200,000. How could I have been so stupid? So the wise father has an open door policy. I know young people are about waste. This is my son. I love him. I know he's going to waste his riches away. When he matures up, when he comes to understand his mistakes, when he repents, when he has enough remorse and guilt and shame, he'll walk back, hopefully. And that's exactly what happens. The son walks back, and the father, seeing him from far away, runs to him, doesn't walk. The father has to overcome. You have to understand, this is a story that comes 2,000 years ago. Saving money, making money and saving money, extremely tough. And then watching your blood and sweat living inside this money being burnt by your stupid son, that's going to cause a lot of negative emotions about you as a father. You know, گلی که خون بدادم پیچ و تابش ز آب دیدگونم دادم آبش به درگاه الهی کی روابی گل از ما دیگری گیره گلابش. Imagine like you and I are in a relationship, you were in a really, really difficult place when you and I first met. We spoke a lot, we talked a lot, we sat a lot, we cried a lot, and eventually you were healed, okay? And then one night I come home and you were there with Rhett. And I said, how could it be for the past 5 years, you are the way you are because of me, right? And then I said, how could it be that I grow and I heal and I basically create Emilia with the blood of my heart and the tears of my eyes, but then he snatches her away? Is it really fair? Is it just? Okay. And so one of the nice things about the father is that first he is really, really wise, and he knows that young people do what young people do, which is just to waste. He swallows his anger, and that's one of the things that you will read in the Gospel of Barnabas. It's not Barnabas, but Barnabas. It's a guy that Jesus talks about, the Gospel of Luke. It's that Barnabas asks Jesus, what is the most profound thing that a human being must overcome? And Jesus says, if you're able to overcome your anger, that's the most difficult thing you can ever overcome, your anger. Okay? The father overcomes his anger, runs to the son, embraces him, gives him a bath, gives him a robe, and has this huge party for him. The oldest son comes home and says, are you kidding? You know, this guy committed all these crimes against you and humanity, and this is the way you treat him. I've never disobeyed you. I've never said no to you, and you've never given me a bath, you've never given me clothes, you never hugged me. He says, yes, your son, your brother was lost, he's found now. You, on the other hand, you were never lost. And that's one of the things. It seems that the message of the prodigal son is, as a human being, you have no choice but to make mistakes. Mistakes are part of what makes us us. The trick is, when you do make a mistake, okay, is there a home you can go to? Is there a father, whether it be a church, whether it be a book, whether it be a therapist? Do you have a support system that just in case you come to realize that, yes, you made A, B, C, D decisions, you thought at the time, that these were really, really good decisions. But time reveals things to us. That's one of the difficulties of being human beings. We only learn through mistakes, and those mistakes are revealed to us in time. At the moment, you won't see them. Okay. Now, are you going to go through this pain alone, or do you have companions? Our friend in the New Testament story has a father and has a brother. He walks back. Today, the sad story is that when you make mistakes, and they kind of just uproot your life and they impact your soul, you have to do it all on your own. You have no mom, you have no dad, you have no friends, you have no companions. Now, going back to your question, first, all of us are in the dark. We have no idea what the right and the wrongs are. From my experience, teaching in the past like 30 years, the students that I liked and I began to have relationships with them, they were not doing anything with their lives. One was okay working at a pizza shop, the other was okay house cleaning, the other was okay just smoking all the time. Because of the relationship, I told them they have to go to school, and they did. They have to get their masters, and they did. Now they all have full-time or part-time teaching positions. They all have houses, they all have companions. Okay. If, for example, you were to come to my office and say, Amir, I'm thinking about dropping out of school and going to Washington or just hitchhiking, I'd probably slap you. I mean, not literally, but I would say, listen, you're young. Whatever it is you want to do with, your pleasures in life, fantasies about life, put them on pause for about 3, 4, 5 years. Stay here. Go to Laney or wherever you want to go. Get your bachelor's and your master's. It'll only take about 5 years. That's it. You won't even be 30 by then. Then you can walk into life. You can go to Yosemite and live there for 10 years. When you grow tired of Yosemite, you can walk back to civilization. And when you walk back with a master's degree. You can do whatever you want. Okay. I think when it comes to big, big decisions in life, you should talk with people who have some life inside them. You know, don't talk to your own friends, 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds. They're stupid. I mean, they may be very nice people, but they're not there for life's wisdom and life's politics and the dangerousness of life. You know, so I can't appropriately answer that question without knowing exactly what you're referring to. If you were to say, I've fallen in love with this guy and I want to marry him, I would say no. If you want to marry someone, that's fine. Make sure you marry make sure you're in a position of privilege. Just in case things don't work out, you have a bachelor's or a master's degree. You know, don't walk into any relationship being poor. Because these days, there's a good chance that, I mean, look, I don't know about romantic relationships, but marriages are about 65% almost down. Which means that if marriage was a business, and if you have a savings account, you're not going to invest it in this business because it's bankrupt. These days, people are bankrupt. They're just broken, shattered into 1,001 different pieces. So if you want to invest your body, your emotions, your intellect, your future, your hopes and dreams in anyone, okay, there's a good chance that you're going to be broken. You're going to walk away much more damaged than you are now. Okay, so it means that go to school, save your money. Okay, don't give your money to your companion. Don't give your body to companion for at least 2, 3, 4, 5 months, if you can kind of hold that energy inside you. Okay. Women stand to lose more than men. Way, 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 way more. So if you're talking about romantic relationship, this guy telling you, let's pack up and move to New York, don't do it. Unless you want to go to New York and go to NYU and continue with your education. Yeah. Since we're talking about romantic relationships and women and all that stuff, can I tell you a story that comes from the Hindu tradition? Maybe I'll tell you for later. Anyone else? Yeah, Elijah. Nothing? Okay. That's it? Yeah.
It's like when it comes to like breaking habits or like starting with like a new commitment or something, like how do you like find that like internal like drive to do something? Because like let's say like you have like an obligation placed on you by like society, but like your parents like they want you to go to like, oh, you should like go to school and you should be like an engineering major or something like that. Like you're not gonna like want to like wait like you're not gonna find it easy to like wake up early like every morning to like go to this thing. But like let's say you're majoring in something that like you yourself like want to major into, then it's like you have that like internal motivation like to do that, and it makes things easier. So it's like when it comes to like breaking habits and like when it comes to like making new commitments like for the better that like or for the better like you want to, it's like how do you turn that into like how do you like internalize that into something that makes it easy like to like I guess like
First, you're Indian. Let's say, and Indians are very focused. They're very linear thinkers, especially when it comes to their kids' education and their kids' future. If you were to go to your mom and dad and say, I want to be a musician, your father will probably have a heart attack. Okay? So, since that's a no-no in your culture, in my culture, mostly in the Asian cultures, you have to do a double major. Tell them you're going to be a doctor and engineer, okay? And you're going to minor in piano. Okay? Now, piano is going to be under an avalanche of stats, calculus, all sorts of courses you have to take that have nothing to do with your passion. I don't really know how to. Look, I woke up today at 6. I was working on, I'm doing some construction. And then I said to myself, okay, I kind of use my body as a mule. I have a triple bypass and I have to exercise, walk for about 45 minutes to an hour. So I didn't really want to do it. I didn't do it last night or the day before. I said, Amir, you may have a stroke, you may die. So you know what? I don't really care. I can drop that, it's fine. But then 5 minutes later, I said, maybe I should just go for a walk. And I did. The truth is, there's a good amount of fear that needs to be inside you. There's a good amount of dedication that needs to be inside you. There's a good amount of conflict that lives inside you. It's the yes and the no, and somehow you have to remember and you have to, I suppose, love the thing that you want to pursue. And you must also know that whatever it is that you love, life is going to kind of come at you full force. Life is there for only one reason, to crush every good thing about you. That is the function of life. It's like going to the military, and it's like being recruited. No one's going to go to Montclair and recruit people. They are rich. And when you're rich, you have hopes and dreams. But people are going to come to downtown Oakland because it's a hopeless place. And military sells them hope. And people follow it. And there's nothing wrong with it, by the way. That's what life does. It just sells you things. Sometimes you find someone who has an internal passion. You just love to play tennis, or you love to play soccer, or you love to play chess, or you just love to be an engineer. So, support system. The guy who was here, my nephew Armand, he was a lousy student. He really was. But then he went to NYU, and his roommate was Arab. And he wanted to be a lawyer. He went to NYU library every single day and stayed there for like 17 hours. And when you're roommates with someone, you become friends. And Armand grows envious of this person. And out of this envy, he accompanies him to the library. So for the past 4 years, every time Armand used to call me, Armand, what are you doing? I'm in the library. It's like 1 a.m, man. Yeah, I got to study. So sometimes when you don't have the will, if you hang out with the right people, they will push you. They will make your journey a bit more easier and smoother. A lot of things really depends on the people you hang out with. And the more mature you are, the more demanding. So, anyone else before we? Yeah, Elijah.
Is the purpose of emotional pain of life grow?
It's what?
The purpose of emotional pain is it to grow?
If you know how to work with things, then yeah. If you don't know how to work with things, then no. I don't know martial arts. So if someone looks at me weird, the mouse that I am, I'll give him some money and I'll just pass by. I just don't want to get beat up. If on the other hand, I'm a really good martial artist and I know how to work with someone's body, pin them down, I have no problem. If you know how to work with things, then yeah. Really, when I realized some time ago that I like construction and it comes to me very intuitively, I began to acquire tools little by little. It began with a screwdriver, then like 50 saws, then 80 this and 80 that. The only thing I can't do is build bathrooms. Everything else I do myself. Okay? So as long as you know how to work with things, it's okay. Now, the problem with working with things is the following. Imagine that you know how to work with emotions, but I don't, and you and I are in a relationship. I kind of flip every 10 minutes. You, on the other hand, you're more stoic, you're more reserved, you're more objective, you're more detached, which means that every time you and I get into a disagreement, I explode. You sit back and you work with this. There comes a point where you just get burnt out. There is a risk of that, and it happens to all of us. You know, uh, there comes a point where you don't want to work with emotional pain. You have paid your dues, you've done it for the past like 5, 10, 15, 20 years, now you want to relax. That's your retirement stage. You know. One of the things about emotions is that they get you drunk. They intoxicate you. I mean, anger is a very, very intoxicating emotion. Jealousy is a very intoxicating emotion. And what happens when you're like drunk and you sit behind the wheel? There is a risk of you crashing into someone or something. There's a risk of you dying. You know, so there's a risk. Emotions get you drunk, okay? And then you try to make decisions. It takes a long, long time for human beings because we don't like to think. It takes a lot of energy to kind of detach yourself. And remember, emotions are judgments. Every time I say something and you say, well, you know, he's just BSing his way through this, that is a judgment. That particular conclusion you come to gives you a tremendous amount of power. You don't know me. You have no idea about my past. And yet you give yourself the right, i.e. the power, to kind of dismiss me by a very, very quick emotional reaction. So all of us in this class enjoy power, enjoy emotions, and enjoy the judgments that they afford us. Okay. To study anything means what? If you want to study anything and you want to understand it, you want to get to know it, well, you need to read a lot of books. You need to think about the things that you read. Some of you in this class, for example, the essays that you wrote and the scores that you got. Imagine you come to my house and I make you rice. And I say, okay, well, tell me about how you felt about the rice. Oh, it was really, really good. Tell me the steps you make it. Okay. So the things I'm looking for is the following. This is the way you deal with emotions. You boil water, and when the water is boiling, you put some salt and some oil. It helps the rice not to stick together. Okay. When everything is mixed together, you put the rice in there for about 5 minutes. It has to be a little raw, a little cooked. Then you strain it. Okay. Then you put the pot on the stove again. You put some oil, cut some potatoes about 1/4 inch thick, you know. Let the oil at the bottom of the pot come to a sizzle. Put the potatoes down. Put some salt on it. Put the rice over it. Put a towel over the pot and put the cover on. Medium low for about maybe an hour. You have beautiful rice, and then you have French fries at the bottom. And I give you the steps because I've done it for the past when I went to India at the age of 11. But it took a lot of practice, a lot of watching, a lot of observing, a lot of awareness, mindfulness, and eventually learning and understanding. Emotions are very much the same. It takes a long time. Whatever there is out there that's worth learning, 10 years of time, at least. And don't be a hippie. Don't say God this and God that and intuition, none of that stuff. Be sober, very rational. Anyone else? Yeah, 1A.
I don't know, like, there's a lot of challenges. So in that case, I'm like, past and then living or like shooting on the past. A lot of people tell me like not to do that. So like, sorry, past, you move on. there any benefit of
Well, first of all, the past is really, 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 really important because it makes you who you are. Okay? Imagine that you and I have been in a relationship for 5, 6, or 7 years, or 2 years, and I was very abusive, or maybe not, I just left you, and you were broken. Okay? For you to forget that episode means you're going to keep making the same mistake. It's good for you to live in the past. Okay? But living in the past doesn't mean that just getting stuck in this frozen sea of ice. It means that you go to the past. Once the emotions have subsided, you say, okay, why the hell did I like him in the first place? Okay? Now you begin to study and examine. Okay? And the past becomes like a book. You begin to read, you begin to kind of process, you begin to put the dots together and begin to understand. So next time you go out, you go to a party, someone looks like me, talks like me, thinks like me, feels like me, you stay away from. So the past becomes really, really important. That's like your Bible. Okay. Now, if the past remains unprocessed, especially if it happens to be a traumatic past, there's a good chance that you're going to, something we'll talk about tonight, which is reincarnation. You're going to repeat the mistakes over and over and over again until you're able to look at the past directly in the face, speak to it, understand it, and then move on. Okay. Now, there is also this part of you that lives in the future. You're young, which means that you need to have dreams of getting a master's or a PhD. You need to have dreams about being in a good relationship. You need to have dreams about buying a nice house in Montclair, Snakewood. You need to have dreams about making $1 million a year. Being a very independent, solid woman who needs no man. You need to have those dreams. The dream that you're going to have children, your parents are never going to go to a nursing home, you're going to take care of them until they pass. You're going to buy a nice car. You're going to have good friends. You're going to live in a gated community. These are good dreams to have, and you need to have them. Okay? You can't live in the worst part of Oakland and just say, I'm going to buy a house next door. Well, that's stupid. What kind of a dream is that? Okay? So there's the past, there's the future. Now, the way you use the present is there are moments you're going to go to the past. There are some fond memories or experiences. You relish in them. Nothing wrong with that. It's something my brother and I do all the time. We talk about once or twice a day, and we always talk about what we did in our 20s. Broke into this shop, stole that, I've gone into a fight with this person. There are moments where you talk about the tragedies of the past. Sometimes they're just serious mistakes in life. Okay? We do that all the time. And so you use the present to kind of go back in the past and kind of just figure things out a little bit. Sometimes you sit and you daydream about the future. Sometimes you use the present to work out the past or work towards the future. And sometimes you're just exhausted. You just sit back and watch a good movie. Like Straw. So anyone who says the past don't matter, like Kanye West, he's just stupid. And if you sit and watch a YouTube and there's this teacher who says, don't live in the future, well, he's stupid too. So we occupy 3 worlds. Past, important. Future, very important. Present. And whatever energy you have in the present, you spend it, either for that or resolve this. Edwin? Brett? If you don't have any questions, you don't have any questions. So we can just... Yeah. Anyone else? 6:48. 6:48? Really? Jeez. Okay, let's move on. You guys remember where we left off? No one? We're talking about Hinduism, right? Kama, Artha, and Dharma? Yes, is that where we are? No, 4th one. What 4th one? Oh, yeah. There's help. Yeah. We'll get to that in a minute. Yeah.
In initiation into love and wisdom, we talked about meditation and how it's more of a distraction.
It's stupid. Yeah.
canceled anything, like not even temporarily?
Oh, if you want a quick fix, yeah. I mean, it's no different than smoking or drinking.
But there's people who like, you see people online talking about how they dedicate themselves to meditation.
No, they're stupid. They're all stupid. Is it good after a hard day's work to go to the back room and sit, close your eyes? Yeah. But what you've done is you've engaged in life, with life, for about like 10, 12 hours, and you understand the difficulties of life. And sometimes you just want to get the pressure off of your chest or off your shoulders. You go to the back room and you close your eyes and, whatever these people say you should do. Breathe in deeply or exhale and inhale and, say Coca-Cola 50, 60 times. And that's what happened in the 1960s. A lot of teachers from India, from Nepal, from China, Japan would come to America. And Americans are hungry. They're hungry because, their life is meaningless, and rightly so, because of the culture. And so they're looking for like a bigger meaning to life. And so these people came in to this particular culture and they began to sell these ideas. Just walk around Lakeshore at 9 in the morning. So what you have is all these like women and men with their mats, rolled up. They're going to a yoga shop, whether it's monkey yoga, Bikram yoga, fucking yoga, whatever the case may be, They go there, they do whatever they do for about an hour, 2 hours, and then they go back into to life. And life is stressful. And you see them being vultures, being angry, being poisoned in all sorts of different ways. That's one way to, then there's nothing wrong with it. I think these days, whatever you can do to remove some stress from your life is good. I like what Krishnamurti, the Indian sage, had argued many, many years ago, which is, look at life. Life is a mess. Life is demanding. You have to pay rent. You have to pay utilities. You have to pay for school. You have to get involved with people. Go back to Sigmund Freud. You need to be in romantic relationships. And closing your eyes and breathing in and out is not going to be helpful. What you need to do is you need to pay attention to everything around you and how things impact you. That's the best meditation you can ever. Look, if I'm a person of color, and I am, and if I want to go visit my parents in Roseville, which I am this coming weekend, look at the way I look. Okay? This is a Bible Belt of the Sacramento area, lots of Republicans. There are going to be racism there. The way I meditate is I look around. I am watchful. Who's looking at me? How are they looking at me? How are they speaking to me? What's the tone of their voice? Do I need to say hello back or should I just walk away? Now that requires a great amount of mindfulness, and that's the best meditation you can ever do in life. Okay? The idea of you leaving life and going to Yosemite simply because some idiot told you go live in the forest, that's stupid. You're young. Go back to Vonne's question. You're in a few blinks of an eye, you're going to be 35, 40. The best way to exercise meditation is look at yourself, look at the culture in which you live, look at the importance of money, look at the importance of human relationships, and then move accordingly. You want to do philosophy, do philosophy. At the same time, do business, do accounting, do something that brings you money, computer science. Pay attention to the difficulties of life. You're a young, good-looking man, you want to go out there and have a companion. Pay attention to what he or she is saying. If they're drinking, if they're smoking, what their parents are like, what their past is like. That requires a lot of reflection on your part to be able to ask good questions and to walk away when you realize something is just poisonous for you. The idea of being in a shitty relationship and then going home and closing your eyes and saying, Coca-Cola, what good is that? Yeah.
What's the Coca-Cola?
Oh, well, in the there was a guy, Ramana Mahesh Yogi, I think, or Maharishi, yeah. It's this guy who came up with the transcendental meditation. And then he had argued that all of us in this room have a mystery inside us, and that mystery can reveal itself if we can have access to this syllable, this word, this thing. I don't know what you call it. It's kind of like Scientology, because I was involved in that for a couple of weeks. It has some really, really interesting stuff. But all that aside, so when Maharshi came here and came to realize how hungry Americans are, he looks at them and says, I know exactly what you need, Satnam. I know what you need. There's a word inside you that wants to come out, but you won't let it. So I know what that word is. I'll sell it to you for about $5,000. But before I ask you, I tell you the price, I have to first figure out where you live, what you do, how much money you make, what your rent is, and how much money you got left over. And a lot of people paid a lot of money. So, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, no.
Is that because he didn't want to scam people who are in a tough?
No, he would scam everyone.
Oh.
Yeah, he had like 50 Rolls Royces. Eventually, got kicked out of America. Yeah, there is. Let me just also add this. There is a place in Chico. It's about, I don't know, it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 hours from here. It's a monastery. There's a waiting list of 2, 3 years. So when I was like your age, maybe a bit younger, I put my name down, and after like 2 years, they called me. They said there is a room available if you want, and then you would give whatever you could. And so one of the things that you do is that first they wake you up at 3 in the morning. At a certain point, you go back to your tiny little hut, and you sit there and you write the Jesus prayer, which is, for those of you who may not know, it's Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on my soul, a sinner. And it's something you do for about 2 hours. And first you're new to this game, so you keep writing, and you say, this is just stupid. So your mind keeps telling you, don't do this, just you grab your stuff and go back home. But you keep doing it, and then there comes a point where you begin to feel each word, Jesus, and then to be Christed. It's really tough for a man to be Christ. It's like, I don't know, Beyonce coming in and looking at all of us and just keeps looking at you and then liking you and say, oh, Red, come home with me because Jay-Z isn't around today. That's like being Christed. So all these human beings around and God chooses you. That's a huge deal. Have mercy on my soul. Mercy is someone who has power over you, who is a judge, and who has the power to forgive. So you're talking to God. And then have mercy on me, a sinner. You get to a place where you see yourself for what you are, a scumbag. But for that to happen, you have to kind of do this over and over and over again for hours and for days until it gets into the feeling center. So that. Yeah, but meditation is secret. So, anyone else before? Good job. Let's move on with Hinduism. E, you ready? Okay. Yeah.
How do you?
Yeah. Nico.
Yeah. How do you forgive yourself for mistakes?
There was a German woman. She's long passed. She's been dead for a while. Her name is Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. From a very, very young age, she was very interested in death and people who are very close to passing. And so she came up with this GPS, this mapping. So in order for this to make sense for you, let me do it this way. This is the way you have lived your life. And going back to Vane's question and Amelia's question about, life-changing choices. You live your life. and 60% negative, 40% positive, and because the positive is very close to negative, you continue with it until you realize the negatives are accumulating and it's becoming a volcano and it's just erupting. And then it's no longer 60-40, it becomes 70 pain, 30 pleasure, then it gets 80 pain, 20 pleasure, and then it gets 90 pain, and then 10% pleasure. And then from the moment you wake up to the time you go to bed, you're just in pain because you see too much. Now, one of the things that usually happens to us, remember, the first deadly sin is called pride. You don't want to be faulted. You don't ever want to catch yourself having made mistakes. You don't ever want to be caught being wrong about anything. That's the way we function. Okay? When my son was very, very young, not even socialized in like civilization, he would cheat in every game we would play. Why? Human beings want to win. And even when we would catch him, we would say, no, you cheated, I didn't cheat. That's how we function. Okay. So the first thing that we do when we are faced with certain realities about ourselves is denial. That's not me. I didn't lie. I didn't cheat. I'm not wrong. I didn't make a mistake. So the first thing that we do is we deny. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not an addict. Because accepting that there is something flawed about your character is really, really tough. Okay? It's like there are moments when you live with an alcoholic or someone who has got like negative addictions, and you're in a relationship with them. You have these insights where you say, leave. But then you deny the insights because accepting them is very, very tough. Okay? So the first thing that all of us in this class do is we deny. It's not going to happen to me. No, that's not me. There comes a point where you can no longer deny because reality just keeps slapping you in the face. Then for the first time you say, yes, I'm just a jerk. I did wrong to my father, wrong to my kids, wrong to my wife, wrong to my body. I did all of this. Okay. Now, after denial, you become very, very, very angry. Because remember what we do in life. Whatever it is that you want to do, you spend time, it's like money. You spend time. You spend energy. You spend hopes and dreams. You spend youth. These are riches that you just give away in hopes of receiving something. And then you realize things are not panning out. Okay? And then you become angry. Now, these are stages you have to go through. Some people don't even get to the denial stage. I mean, look at, what's his name? That guy who died. Don't you guys know the guy I'm talking about?
Well, he hasn't died.
Yeah, the guy with the Playboy. Hugh Hefner. Okay? Well, in my mind, he's still alive. Now, the thing with Hugh Hefner, right? I mean, this is a guy who denies the fact that he's like 150 years old. He denies because it's really tough to kind of look yourself in the mirror and say, what the hell happened to my face, man? When did my beard get gray? I was just 20 just a couple of days ago. When did this happen? And then you become angry. You become angry because your body wants to go places, but it can't. The only way you can go to places is through your imagination. I would like to go out with a 20-year-old, but I can't. These things are past for me. I like to go to parties and stay up all night. I just can't anymore. And so you become angry for the missed opportunities. You become angry for all the mistakes that you've made. You become angry for the way your life has just unfolded. You become angry. Now, no one knows when you're going to overcome anger. Some people don't ever overcome anger, and they die with a good amount of anger just before the last breath. Then they find peace, okay? Then what happens after a while is anger just exhausts you. And then you begin to bargain with life. Okay? You say, you know what? I'll give you $50 if I can do A, B, C, D. In other words, you say, let's say your father has been really, really an awful human being to you, and he's gotten sick, he's gotten old, and now he bargains with you. He says, son, I'm really, really sorry for being such an awful human being. Let's start our relationship over again. Here's $50,000. He's bargaining. He'll give you money for your love. He'll give you money for your time. He'll give you money for a relationship. That's what we do with bargain. Okay. Now, so what you do is you say, since I should have gone to school, finished this up at the age of 18, but I didn't. What I'll do now is I'll bargain with life. I'll keep my 2 jobs and I'll take evening classes. That's how you bargain. Okay. So you add more stress to your life. You carry more crosses on your shoulder. There comes a point where you realize that it doesn't matter how much you bargain with life, it's just not paying off. You have 2 jobs, you have a wife, you have kids, maybe you have a companion, maybe your health is not well, and you just drop out of school. Bargaining doesn't help. Now you get depressed. Depression is where you lose all hope. In depression, you're alone. In depression, there is darkness. In depression, there is no meaning. In depression, there is isolation. There is this feeling of dread that there are 8 billion people on this planet and no one understands you. No one can ever have a relationship with you. And in depression, you also lose a good amount of self-respect. Your blinds are never open. If you're able to graduate from depression, and no one knows how it happens. I mean, there are lots of books out there, lots of teachers out there who will tell you that if you do A, B, C, D, you'll get to S or G or Y. It's not true. Everybody works on a different timetable. Some people just don't have the capacity to overcome anger. Some people don't have the capacity to get depressed or overcome depression. Okay, so everybody's different. If you're able to graduate from the stage of depression, then you get to a place of acceptance. You say, you know what? I got cancer. Stage 4. Doing the best I can. I said, I'm sorry to my wife. She flipped me off. There isn't much I can do. You can't force anyone to change the way they look at you or feel about you. I tried. It failed. I went to my kids. I told them I'm sorry. They also flipped me off. There isn't much I can do. I mean, you actually accept the fact that people don't like you, and you're okay with that. It doesn't mean that you're not in pain. Okay? And you also accept the fact that you're going to die, that your life didn't amount to much. You have a good amount of regret, but you're okay with that as well. That's called acceptance. So this idea of forgiveness, if you look at forgiveness as a craft or as an art, okay, there are moments you're inspired where you say, I've looked at my life and it's crappy. Okay, and you want to change. But if you don't stay with it, you'll forget. And you'll party, you have a good time with life for a while, and then it'll come back again. It'll resurrect from the dead. It says you, I told you you're not going to get rid of me so easily. The thing about forgiveness is that you catch yourself having transgressed. You have committed some things wrong. Look, if you and I lived in a culture where open relationships were okay, you would need no forgiveness if you were to sleep with Elijah. So the judgment that is imposed upon you first is cultural, then it's parental, okay? Something about the way you are judges a certain action and deems it inappropriate. Okay. And then depending what it is that you have done. You know, I was in this maybe 5-6 year long relationship with someone who had multiple sclerosis, MS. I don't know if you know what that particular disease is. It kind of just messes up everything about you. You have these neurons that are protected by myelin sheets where messages get, cross very, very quickly. When the myelin sheets get destroyed, messages are delayed. So you say, I want to go here. but your leg doesn't get the message, and so as you take a step, you just fall. Okay? The reason why I stayed in the relationship for as long as I did is because I couldn't see myself getting out. She was alone. I really, really liked her, but the idea of being in a relationship for the rest of my life with someone who could potentially get sicker and sicker and sicker, and then my relationship with my own parents was slowly becoming damaged, and I was feeling very isolated, very angry. Okay, so every time I told her I no longer want to be in this relationship, I had difficulty with that, and I couldn't forgive myself that, I just don't want to be in the relationship. So I would eventually go back, and I would caress the relationship for another like 2, 3, 4, 5 months. Then it would start again. There came a point where I said, you know what? I just can't do it. I don't even need to forgive myself. I don't want this. I think once you begin to understand the things that you have done and why you did them, forgiveness will be very much like orange fruit on the tree. As long as it's green and it's raw, it's going to stick to the branch. It's not going to fall. There comes a point where you kind of look at your actions, and then after studying kind of like Elijah's question, you sit back, you study the emotions. After a while, it just falls. You will no longer have any need. Hello, how are you? Does that make sense? Yeah. But there are certain things you will never forgive yourself for. My brother had a colleague, the American River College. He was 20. His father was, I think, 60. He punched his father in the face and broke his nose. His father passed. When he told the story to my brother, was 50. 30 years after, he still wasn't able to forgive himself. And rightly so. Some things will haunt you for a long, long time. Good. Anyone else before we do the Hindus? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. No? Okay. Elijah. This is not my fault. I've tried to do the Hindus for the past hour and a half, but Elijah, go ahead. So there is the physical part of you, the physical part, your body. You look yourself in the mirror and you like the way you look. You go to a party, everyone looks at you. And your body has the power to generate emotions. Wow, so-and-so is giving me attention. I like it. So-and-so looks at me and says, I love you. I like it. So through your body, you get a lot of emotions. Okay? And then your intellect comes in and says, okay, what's the next outfit I can wear to a party that makes me even better looking? So you can love your physical body. Okay? But then when relationships become a bit more mature, they may come to realize you're just like a hollow on the inside. So next is the emotions. That all of us in this class love our past. We love hurt, we love pain, we love wounds, because we keep talking about them. I mean, when you go to a therapist office, the only thing you talk about is yourself and your emotions and what other people have done to you and how they've wronged you. So you love your emotions, and it's very difficult to overcome them. Okay. Then you can have someone like me who's read a lot of books, and you say, I love my intellect, and I carry my body in the classroom, and I speak, and emotionally I'm inspired. Loving your intellect. Okay. Then there is this other part of you where you say, my body, my emotions, and my intellect have to be slave to my spirit. Okay. And I think these are stages that people go through, When you are young, and you have your body is healthy, you need to love your body because it takes you to all sorts of different places, and you kind of get experiences. It's good. You get to a certain place in life where you want to kind of work on your emotions, mature them, enhance them, refine them a little bit. So you pick and choose the books, or you watch certain movies that inspire certain emotions about you. I no longer want to go out with people or have people come to my office where they talk about their past. I'm no longer interested in that. Well, that too, but you can't help, those things. You can't fix them. It takes a lot of work. Okay. There comes a point where you say, I'm tired of being an emotional junkie. I mean, that's what romantic relationships really are all about. It's just junk. It's a junkyard. And when you look inside you, your interior is just filled with junkyards because every 2 years you get yourself into a romantic, inspiring relationship, and it goes nowhere. At a certain point, you say, you know what, I want to think about things a little bit more. You begin to fall in love, not so much with your body, because now you have no use for it. The only thing you have use for your body is you take your sorry ass to Barnes and Nobles, you grab a book from the shelf, you take it home, you read, and as you read the books that you choose, also you generate specific emotions. Then there comes a point where you say, you know what, there is no place to go. I don't want to go traveling. For what? I'm tired of being an emotional junkie, and I'm tired of talking about this stuff and reading about this stuff. I want to feel something. The Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard, he had once said, I want to see a woman, feel a woman, reflect on a woman with whom I can spend the rest of my life. That not only is your physical body involved, but your emotions involved, your thought process, reflective abilities are involved as well. That's a very, very mature stage to be in. So you can be in love with all these different parts of you. And if you're really, 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 really mature, you realize that your body, your mind, your emotions, and your spirit work harmoniously together, really this fine-tuned engine. And that's a very, very tough place to be. And it usually takes about 50, 60, 70, 80 years if you're very focused. So these are the different selves you're working with. If you want to be a bodybuilder and you want to fall in love with your body, you got to go to the gym. You can only love your belly if you have a six-pack. And sometimes you don't want to go to the gym, but because you're committed to this love, you go to the gym. I mean, there comes a point in love where it's just work. It's just demanding and it's tough. And he said, this is not love, but it is.
And it's considered loving yourself?
It's something like that, yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
no, I'm just saying because you get a certain age and you don't have the body you used to have. You have to realize that.
Oh yeah. I mean,
So it's like how to find. I'm not what I used to be. I don't try to think.
no. May we speak frankly? You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you sure? You guys are hearing me, right? She's sure. Okay. So listen. You don't need to be in love with your body because you and I at a certain age, your body just it's like trash. Now, emotions, you're far too tired to hang out with anyone who's problematic. Thinking, I just want to do things that are easy on the body, easy on the emotions, easy on the mind. So when you go on a dating app, and you're looking for a companion, you say, do you have money? He says, yeah. So listen, we have sex once every 5 years, okay? I don't want to do traveling. I don't want you to talk to me. I'm not cooking, so we eat out every night. You know, it has taken you 60 years or 70 years to come to this conclusion that at this stage in your life, you want to be taken care of. That's a good pride to have, and that's a good love to have, because you've understood a lot of things about yourself. You're not interested in sex, you're not interested in drinking or smoking, you
So
know.
that's a good pride.
Yeah, it's a great pride. Are you kidding? Yeah.
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 Yeah, because I was trying to understand, you know, you hear negative things about about.
The pride is really good. If you're good at anything, be proud. Be very proud. Yeah. If you're lousy at things and if you're proud, you're just stupid.
At this time in my life, I want to, you know, I want to be able to do certain things.
Yeah. I don't think anyone should be proud. Maybe when they're like 50 or 60, they can. I mean, people like us who are not good at anything, just keep your mouth shut. Not you, I'm just saying in general. Yeah. I mean, kids are different, you know, when you have like a 2-year-old and says, Dad, come to the bathroom. I'm like shitting on my own. It's beautiful. Brand new experience is, you know, but if at my age, you know, hey kids, come watch me shit. That's just stupid. You should come read the, you know, the book I'm writing. Maybe that. Anyone else before E? Okay, let's do this. Any other questions before we, go ahead, Red. E, it's not my fault.
If somebody is kind of like intoxicated by they have too much, is it possible for them to, through other people or through themselves, to break that? Because people, I tend to like notice people who have too much pride, if you try to have a discussion or conversation with them, you say you try to make them see a certain point, when it comes to the point, pride just like blocks out this one fact or a piece of information that they just cannot accept.
I think the only way that you will have enough openness to receive anything is when something about life has disturbed you, broken you, when you're sick, for example, or, you know, if someone very close to you has passed away and all of a sudden you have empathy and life becomes meaningless. I mean, look at the story of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is a profoundly arrogant man, and that arrogance explodes because he is so beautiful physically. He is so powerful, you know, he can do whatever he wants because he's a king. But then he falls in love. You know, in one of the Shakespeare's plays, I forget which one, Ferdinand is a king or a prince, and I mean, he has a lot of power, and he falls in love with this woman by the name of, I think, Miranda or something. And one of the things that this particular emotion, i.e. love, does is that he gives himself wholly to this woman. The woman is a peasant, she's a nobody. But love makes him humble, love makes him small and irrelevant. And love also makes this woman a queen. So I think life has to offer you either this thing called love or some devastating tragedy for something about you to break. You know. Besides that, nothing. Yeah. Anyone else? Allahu Akbar. Yes.
How should you grieve?
Grieve?
Yeah.
I think people grieve differently. I had a friend who lost his father, and he just talked about sex the entire time when we went there. It was just like his father had died at 4 p.m. and we went to visit him at 6, and he was just sex filled the entire night. Some people are very stoic. They say nothing. They kind of just bow their head very quietly. Some people cry. Some people bang their heads. It really depends on. You don't grieve for things you don't care for. You don't, and the things you care for is because you have a relationship with them. So the more intense the relationship, the more intense the grieving process, and the longer it's going to last. Whatever it is that you have loss usually makes you profoundly alone. But it's always good to be alone in a group setting. If my father, for example, was to die tonight, there are going to be 20, 30 people at our house. And that's going to be the case for the next 5, 6 months. So even though no one can reach my mom, okay, even though my dad can't be resurrected from the dead, we are nevertheless going to be around my mother. So she can know that despite the fact that she feels all alone, she can cry and we can see her. And there is a comfort in that. Now, ancient cultures have grieving processes. America doesn't. America is far too young, But it also depends on your family culture and tradition.
One question, what about resurrection? And the Jews culture, do they believe in resurrection through Jesus Christ?
The Jews? No.
Yeah, no, they don't.
Not the Jewish tradition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they believe in resurrection? Or they do not?
No, I don't think they believe in resurrection.
Oh.
They believe in, life after death. But the idea of resurrection is an old one. It's not really Christian at all.
Oh.
It comes from, we'll talk about, well, we won't, but there have been 12 people who've been born of a virgin, left their house at the age of 12, came back at the age of 30, and kind of died on a cross-like thing at the age of 33. Yeah. But, yeah. Okay. That's it? Oh, yes, Rochelle.
Let's see. I know you spoke about your friend went to prison and then traveling to different countries.
Right.
And then you said that he was working at food here for several years and then a
Computer scientist.
scientist. So, what does it take for someone to change? Well, I think you kind of explained it a little bit too when it comes to relationships. A person to see how they should be around people that are married and have healthy relationships and cultivating those relationships and things like that, being around good influences rather than negative people and hanging around people that are not losers, that sort of thing.
Right.
So do you have any books that you recommend for people that are like changing their life trajectory, but are on the right path?
So, forgive me for interrupting. For those of you who are interested in ideas, I can give you my cell number, and then you can download Telegram. It's an application. Just download it to your phone, send me a message on it, and I will send you a few thousand hours of audios you can listen to, if you'd like. Yeah.
Download Telegram?
Telegram, right. Yeah. Okay.
How do you deal with people dismissing your emotions?
Well, it depends on who it is. If I am your husband and I'm dismissing your emotions, we'll probably divorce in 5 years. If I am your instructor, for example, and you come to my office and you want to talk about your issues, I'm going to dismiss them. I'm not going to come down to where you are. My job is to make sure that you come up to where I am, not the other way around. So it depends on who's dismissing you. Listen, the truth is, everybody has issues. I mean, everybody, not issues like in a bad way. People are just trying to figure their life out. And we only have capacity for other people for so long before we shut down. It happens, our organism just shuts down automatically. I mean, I can listen to your stuff for maybe 10 minutes before I lose interest. Okay. Now, if you happen to be best friends, for example, you're going to like have all these demands for me. That Amir, you're my best friend. You're supposed to be there whenever I click or clack, And the truth is that maybe so in your imagination, but I have a trash bin that, after 2 hours of listening to your nonsense, it'll just get filled up, and then I begin to smell, and I don't want that. So a good amount of it has to do with who you're around, who's dismissing you. Are we talking about like romanticism? The more mature someone is, the less interesting you're going to be.
What if it's like your parents?
Oh, parents, yeah, they have no tolerance for kids. I mean, look, parents are there for only one thing: to make sure you go to school, you have clothes, you have food in your belly, and you have a nice little room. They do laundry for you. Hopefully, you live there rent-free and all that stuff. No, they don't. They go to work from 9 to 5. They come home. They just want to relax. Even though that's really not possible. And once you become a parent, you're just in the trash business for the rest of your life. Because kids go through all these different stages. First, you got to potty train them. Then the terrible two. Then they have to do math, and they have to do reading, and they have to do piano, none of which they want to do. Then comes this like 12-year-olds or 13-year-olds. They want to smoke now. They want to have sex. They want to watch porn. Then they graduate from high school. They need money for college or whatever. Then they get into a romantic relationship. Then they start drinking and smoking even heavier. And then they get married to the wrong person. Then they have the wrong children. And then they divorce. And then you're stuck with their fucking kids, And then you kind of look yourself as a mom or a dad, you realize, man, you're like 60 and you wasted your life on these trash you call kids. And kids really are trash. I mean, I'm not joking. They're really, 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 really trash. It takes a long time for this trash to be a good compost. Kids are supposed to be useful, especially for parents, especially in their old age. But kids these days, man, they're so fucked up in all sorts of, forgive me, they're so like, they have issues. By the time they figure things out, the father has had like few strokes and the mother is probably dead. So, yeah, I mean, take it easy on your parents. Just do what you can on your own. I mean, the other thing about parents, you get together with someone for sex. And then emotions come up. And then you feel bad for leaving them, so you get married to them. And then at a certain point, you say, well, maybe we should have children because what are you going to do with this woman or this man for the next 50 years if you don't have kids? It's not like they're Jesus Christ. They're not like a well of inspiration. No. They're like a foot deep. After 2 days, they have nothing more to offer you. They're boring. So you say, oh, now women, they need to have kids. So, well, when are we going to have family? Okay, family. And then you take care of the kids for the next, so, it's not like people sit back and say, well, are we going to be good parents? Oh, of course, honey. We're going to be great parents. Do we have the budget for it? Of course. Anki dan dan dahad nan dahad. Who gives life will also provide bread. That's how you become parents, not through an act of reflection. It's all sex-driven. But given that your birth on this planet was around the sexual pleasures of two strangers, and you're here by force. Two people got together, had sex, here you are. It is your right to demand the best of things from them. ما بدین ره نه پی حشمت و جاه آمده ایم از بد حادثه اینجا به پناه آمده ایم. No one asked me to come here. I was forced down here. And since your parents forced you down here, yeah, ask them for money, for laundry, for a car, for a boyfriend. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah. I have been wanting to do Hinduism for the past 2 hours. Yeah.
Mine is just like it's something like what I asked before. It's like when it comes to like grieving, you'll have people like
The what?
grieving. Like,
Oh, grieving.
It's kind of like my last question. It's like you'll have people who like isolate, or you'll have people who get like angry and break stuff, or and whatever. Or it's like that's like like if like your parents die, or like let's say like if you like break up or something, then like you'll have people who like will like delete like all the photos of like them, or will like throw away like all the stuff that their parent gave them, or people like in with any type of relationship will like grieve in all certain ways. But it's like when it comes to like doing that, like how how do you find like the use of like feeling like the grief itself and also like moving on? Because like let's say like when someone it's kind of a big question.
Assalamu alaikum. A couple of things. There is something about our organism that enjoys companionship. Okay. There is something about companionship that inspires relationships. Relationships create attachments. Attachments create a lot of projection. I see my future with you. My hopes and dreams rest with you. Okay. And so when there is a loss, we go into the grieving mode. We have no choice but to always, human beings are grieving animals. From the moment you're born to the time you die, you attach, life takes it away, you grieve. You attach, life takes away, you grieve. And since this is our business, one of grief, you just have to find the best way that works for you. Sometimes I wake up and I'm in a lousy mood. I don't feel like I'm married. I don't feel like I'm a father or a husband. I don't have anyone. I don't have a job. I don't do any of this stuff. I just sit behind the piano and I play and I sing. And that lasts for about 5, maybe 10 minutes, and then I go back. And that's just the way things are. I suppose you can consider grief to be sort of a hunger. And then you have to figure out what you're hungry for. How can you best satisfy this particular hunger? Yeah. There used to be a time I would walk in the cemetery in Sacramento, and I would take my dates there. Sunrise Cemetery. It was like huge, 50 acres, beautiful.
You take the dates there?
Yeah. Yeah, and I would find this like nice tombstones, put a blanket down and, go at it. You guys haven't done that?
No.
Oh no, you guys haven't lived life. You gotta do it in the cemetery, in the church, in the mosque. Pray, not what were you guys thinking? So
You said you went on a date.
yeah. The point is, there comes a point where you go to the cemetery and you don't feel anything. رو به گورستان دمی خاموش نشین آن سخنگوی خاموشان را ببین. آن خاموشان سخنگو را ببین. That, you know, you go to the cemetery, it's very, very quiet, and yet it's so loud. And you go there because you feel a loss of something, you don't know what it is. And there comes a point in your life where you walk to the cemetery thinking that the dead will speak to you, at least inspire some emotions, but nothing. You don't feel anything. In the Persian tradition, human beings are symbolized as a tulip, a red tulip, and in the middle of the red tulip, it's black. And so the poets have argued that it's red because our hearts are broken. And our hearts are broken because we were burnt at the moment of birth. God's finger touched our hearts. The heat turned our heart black. At the same time, it became red and it bled. And the only way the healing will come is for us to go back to where we came from. So if you come from a culture such as that, you realize from the moment that you're born, you're in this grieving mode, you know, that you come with a loss and you're looking for something or someone that can satisfy that particular loss, and to no end. I mean, look around you. We get married because it's an institution that promised stability. That's the only thing that's stable in life. You know, only death do us part. That your wife or your spouse will always be there unless death takes them, you know. That was the only stability we thought we had, and that's gone now. Religion is gone now. So I don't really know how people grieve for the things they become attached to and they lose them. Because without rituals, you don't have much. Can I tell you a story? And you may like this story, in fact. So when I go home, we've had this ritual for the past like 40 years or so. My wife waits for me outside with a bucket of water and a towel. She washes my feet for about 10 minutes. And then she serves me food. I eat, she waits. When I'm done, I tell her she can eat now. But I sit on a chair where she sits on the floor. And then when I want to get up and like watch TV or go to the bedroom, I put my hand on her head, help myself up, and then I walk away. That has been the ritual. Now, we don't have that ritual, and that what I just told you doesn't make sense to you. It probably in your imagination, I'm very mean, you know. But here's the thing. This particular narrative comes from the Albatraz community in Southern Africa. So when a man goes out, he becomes contaminated with the world. Desires, emotions of anger, jealousy. He becomes a vulture, so to speak. A house is a sacred place. You know, it's a place where you have a relationship with your kids, with the gods. You have sacred literature there. You have conversations there. So you don't want to bring the world inside your home. You know, like sometimes you have a job and you don't like your boss and you don't like your customers and they pissed you off. You go home with that emotion. You just poison the home environment, you know, and you scream and you shout and your wife says, but I haven't done anything. And all of a sudden you catch yourself. So she washes my feet because what I see, I desire. What I desire, my body carries me. Eventually my feet carries me. So she washes my feet, and in essence, by washing my feet, she also cleanses my eyes. She also washes my hands. Okay. So I am baptized. I can't do it on my own. And a man can't do it for me. It has to be a woman. A woman has all the power. Okay. Now, why is it that I sit on the chair and she sits on the ground? Well, what is it that women and the earth have in common? They both give birth. Men give birth to nothing. Men are just stupid. Men have no function. You know, men have a lot of false children, i.e. ideas that go nowhere. Okay. And so I am not worthy of the ground, so I sit on the chair. Now, why is it that I eat first? Just in case there is something wrong with the food, I should get sick first. I should vomit first. I should be in bed. And my condition should alert my wife that the food should not be eaten. Why should I help myself up by touching her head, the crown of her head? Well, because there's a connection between my wife and the earth, and I want to have a bit of that connection. Now, if you don't have that ritual, and you talk about that story, you will have some feminists in the back, or some men who become women, right? Who say, well, wait a minute. Well, that's not a good story. Women have rights, and women are this, and women are that, and men are this. I say, well, yeah, it's because that particular psychology is absent from your culture. That's why you think this way. So if your culture has given you rituals of grief and grieving process, well, you're very rich. If they haven't, then you're very poor, just in case you do something. Anyone else? Yeah, Rochelle.
I downloaded the app.
Okay. You want me to say my number?
Out loud, yeah.
916 666. Yeah, you're contacting the devil. 666 0122.
Okay, so 916.
You don't need to repeat it. 916 666 0122. Oh, wait. Is it? Yeah, 0122.
So you travel from Sacramento for this?
No, are you kidding? No. I live in Oakland. I wouldn't travel from Roseville for this class. No, I would. Yes, that's because I lived in Sacramento for 30 years.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And it's a nice number. I like the sixes. No, it's okay. I mean, I went to Verizon. I said, I want all sixes. They said, it's taken. I said, by who? They said, Lucifer. I said, okay.
So is this the only school you teach at, or do you teach other places?
This is the only place I work at. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else?
Only evening classes?
Well, summertime. I've taught this class for the past 21 years here.
Okay.
But next semester, my classes will be 4 in person and 1 or 2 online.
Got a packed schedule.
Yeah. Anyone else before we? What time is it?
7:47.
Okay, we have about an hour. Let's do Hinduism real quick. All right. I'm sorry? Oh.
That's what I was saying to you earlier. I said I didn't realize that class was at 8:50. And I've been leaving all the time
Yeah.
at 8 o'clock. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I said, he needs to learn how to end his class at 8 o'clock. And then I was looking through my notes, and I was looking at a schedule or something. And oh my God, his class is ending at 50. And I had it wrong all the time. I kept being annoyed.
You should forgive yourself.
I did. I did. I kept telling him, I said, because I've been sitting here all this time thinking your class is over at 8, and I kept wondering, why isn't he stopping? He should start
Yeah.
filling it down at 7:45 and end at 8. I want to hear the end of the class.
Yeah. Okay. So now, having said that, do you have any other questions before we do Hinduism? It's been such a strange class tonight that I'm not sure if we can do actually Hinduism. E, do you have any questions? You sure? Maybe you have a question about Hinduism? What? Yeah. Avi?
They sort of presented the progression of how humans went from speaking about new gods, down to gods in heaven, then to one god, and then the scientific notions of um, there are still people who believe in both scientific truths and in God or one God. How does that, how does that, how from that?
Well, let me change your question a little bit. Forgive me. Um, let's say that you're married and you have a relatively good relationship, not without conflict. Once in a while it happens. But it's a very nice and comfortable and healthy relationship. And you've been in it for about 10, 15, 20 years. Time passes, and it's not something you intended, but it happens, which is you walk to Pete's Coffee, you drop your bag or your purse, someone bends over, picks it up, gives it to you, and your eyes meet, and there's a place inside you that gets inspired, excited. And then let's say it happens to be one of those days where you're kind of free-spirited a little bit. And you want to sit at Pete's and drink your coffee. All the tables are taken except one. And it's raining outside, so you can't really sit out. So this guy sits at the table, and you're looking around. The only place available is that. So you go sit next to this guy. And since your eyes met, there is some familiarity there. And then you take a book out of your bag, you start reading it, and this guy looks at it and says, "What are you reading?" And then the conversation happens. And then you close the book, put in your bag, and you focus on the conversation. And the conversation continues for about an hour, maybe two, maybe three, maybe four. And then as you're about to walk away, he says, "Well, thank you. It was a wonderful conversation. I'll be here tomorrow just in case." Say, "Okay." You say, "You see this? I'm married." So yeah, I understand. I'm married too, but I'll be here tomorrow. And you can't sleep at night. You're kind of restless. You think about this chap. Tomorrow comes. You make breakfast for the kids, the husband. Everything's fine. And as you're in the kitchen doing A, B, C, D, all of a sudden you say, "I have a couple of hours. Maybe I can go there, grab myself a cup of coffee. But just in case the guy is there, I'm just gonna come back home." Thinking yourself that you're like Superman, strong-willed. You go there, and the guy is there, and you say hello, and he says hello. You sit another 4 hours, and little by little. And as your relationship continues, you realize there's a part of you that sees herself as a wife, as a mother, very devoted, monogamous, faithful. There is this other part of you that's filled with life and passion. And once again, you are reminded how love felt some 20 years ago. Nothing has gotten physical, and you don't want it to get physical, and perhaps it never will be physical. But there is this sacred place inside you now that's reserved for this new person. And then the question is, well, how do you live with this? Well, initially it's not going to be easy because you're a very traditional, let's say, woman. There has never been a divorce in your family. No one has ever done what you're doing. And this was unintentional, unintended, and yet it happened. That's what life does. There was a movie with Meryl Streep and Clint Eastwood, I think under the San Joaquin Bridge, yeah.
No, not Joaquin, Madison.
Yeah, Madison Bridge. Thank you.
I just saw it the other night.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
It is.
And so what you have is, there are moments in your head where you say, I'm going to leave my family for this guy. You're going to have lots of restless sleeps. Your husband may want to be intimate, but you just can't do it because all of a sudden you realize that your body is far too sacred and it can only house love and it can only have sex with love. And so every time he says, let's do it, you say, well, today it's this and tomorrow is that. I can't do it, you know. And so it takes, depending on the intensity of this new relationship, it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 months, maybe 2, 3 years for things to be adjusted inside you. And now you know that when you go home, you're fully devoted to your husband. When you go to feet, you're fully devoted to this person. And you're able to kind of manage both lives. And shame has gone away, guilt has gone away. You're able to kind of tame the emotions in a very creative, artistic, proficient way. And so there is, I suppose, a stage in your life where you're guided by devotion and faith. And you sit and you pray. And as you say, I want to understand things a little bit with my intellect, you become like a René Descartes. You become like an Immanuel Kant. You become like a Sigmund Freud. You sit back, you observe. And then you say, well, religion is just a childhood fantasy. At a certain point in your life, you realize you can actually be a priest as well as a scientist. But it takes a long time. And there's going to be like this sandstorm. And it's blinding and it's uncomfortable. And you have no idea where you are and what you are and who you are because there is so much conflict and strife within you. But if you're able to be patient with it, eventually the storm will calm. And you're able to manage both worlds. Sometimes it's difficult, most often is, but after a long time. Even though August Comte, who is the founder of this particular idea of progression, even though he didn't like religion, he in fact made himself a cult. He became the head of this cult. And he asked his students to worship him. You know? So even though you don't like something, eventually it becomes part of you. You embody it to some extent. Yeah. Anyone else? That's it? Yes, Matthew.
Ask them about yeah, we were talking about the karma, the karma.
Yes.
Karma is in the artha is in the
And Dharma is in the heart. Okay, yeah. And so if you're able to, again, stretch your imaginations back to Wednesday night, you realize that at the end of every journey, boredom awaits you. Dissatisfaction awaits you. And if you happen to be somewhat reflective, you sit back and you say, where exactly can I go? What exactly can I do where boredom doesn't come to me? And you realize there is no path out there. Let me give you an example. Imagine that so you get together with someone and you have lots of physical interaction, i.e. sex, and it's fun. After a while, it gets boring. So you begin to talk about your past, how you went to Yosemite. You sit and read books together, watch movies together. You enjoy their physical presence. That inspires some emotions, but after a while, you realize this person no longer inspires you in any way. But then you sit in your room and you read books. That's, you want to understand a few things. And after a while, you realize you're tired of all these ideas. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Right? So let's say at my age, I say, okay, well, this person looks good. Maybe we can have sex. But because I've had it so often, I think back and I say, okay, so, you have some coffee, you pretend that you're interested in them, but you're really not. And then you eventually get them to bed. You do it maybe 4, 5, 6, 10 times. And eventually you say, okay, I don't want to be around them. And I don't certainly want to have them call me. Okay? And you realize that at this stage, anyone who comes to you and says, I'm relatively attractive and say, eventually want to have sex, say, I've been there, I've done that. And so before you can even be engaged, you can actually predict the boredom coming to you. Okay. Let's say now I have a student who comes to me and he wants to open up and spew all the stuff. Say, yeah, it's fun to be helpful. It's nice to help people. But then I look back and I say, yeah, for like 5 years I made sandwiches, for 20 years I did this, for 50 years I did that, and what that has gotten me? Nothing. If you watch the first Zorro movie with Anthony Hopkins and Antonio Banderas, so Zorro by this time is an old man, right? He calls Antonio Banderas to this training area and says, I'm going to get my daughter. He says, you're not going to help me? He says, no. I helped my people for 40 years. What did they get me? My wife got killed. My daughter was stolen from me, and I'm old. And so I no longer want to help people. I'm no longer interested. So before you actually want to help someone, you realize you've been there, you've done that. It doesn't amount to anything. And then you begin to buy a book, for example, and you say, wow, this paragraph is really interesting. Maybe I should just purchase the book, take it home and read it from cover to cover. And then you realize, well, this book says the same thing that other books have said. And that becomes boring as well. And so you say, where in life can I go where boredom doesn't wait for me? Because there is no place you can go. Okay? And that could be devastating for you, emotionally, intellectually. And so the Hindus argue there is only one salvation, and that's called death. Once you die, you will no longer feel. You will no longer think. You will no longer desire. رو سر بنه به بالین تنها مرا رها کن ترک من خراب شبگرد مبتلا کن از من گریز تا تو هم در بلا نباشی بگزین ره سلامت ترک ره بلا کن. It's the last poem supposedly written by Rumi, where he looks at his son and says, this is a pain that has no remedy. Go. Don't stay with me. Don't try to understand me. Don't try to have me inspire emotions about you so you can help me. There is no help in this. I have to do this on my own. Life is boring. Life has nothing to offer me. I'm going to walk towards my own suicide. Okay? But something really awful happened in the Hindu tradition at this stage, which is they look at, how you mow your lawn and 2 weeks later it's like 10 feet long. Say, I thought I destroyed my lawn, but it keeps growing back. It seems that there is something about life that has the power to recycle itself. Life wastes nothing. And for the first time, you have the idea of reincarnation. Now, here's the thing you need to understand about reincarnation. First, let me give you reincarnation in a way that's useful for all of us in this class. You go to a party, you see someone with good looks, you pursue them, or they pursue you. Relationship is built, emotions are generated, attachments are created. Then you realize the relationship is no good. You break up without understanding why you got involved in the first place. You heal. You feel the pangs of loneliness. Your body desires companionship. You go out there again. You spend time, you spend energy, relationship is created, attachments are built, okay? You spend time, then you come to realize it's no good and it falls apart again. You break up, you walk away, but without understanding. And if you pay attention, you realize this is what we call reincarnation. We keep repeating the same old mistakes without understanding. That's reincarnation. And the entire task of religious ideas, philosophical ideas, is you understand so that the past can come to be stopped completely. Okay? Why is it that right now everybody is interested in Russia, understanding the history of Russia, understanding the history of China, understanding the history of empires? Because no empire lasts. And what happens when you become an empire? You get drunk with power, arrogance. And what happens to the people who live in that empire? They are devastated. Okay? So the only way you can stop the past from revisiting is understanding, not meditation, understanding. Okay? And when we get to the Upanishads, which is a later philosophy of Hinduism, we'll talk about psychedelics, we'll talk about meditation, but these are specialties by special teachers for special students. It's not meant for the commoners, even though the commoners can engage and find them useful once in a while. Okay? Now, the problem with reincarnation is the following. For the longest time, I believed that I am in life, I engage in life, I work with life, life eventually creates boredom, I become dissatisfied, I go back into life and engage again, knowing full well that what is waiting for me is disappointment. And I believe that once I die, that's my salvation. But now there is this brand new philosophy. You will die, yes, but you will come back to life. Now, if you have physically harmed someone, you will come back to life as an inanimate object, as a pen, or a pencil, or a rock, or a piece of shit. If you have harmed someone emotionally, intellectually, you will come back to life as a vegetable, lettuce. If you have harmed someone more intensely in their interior, you will come back as an animal. If you have devastated somebody's soul, you will come back to life, suffering from many disabilities, physical, emotional, intellectual. Okay? So, if some of you in this class have suffered from any traumatic experiences, and you have imposed those traumas onto other people, you don't have to die and be resurrected to come back as a lettuce, for example, as an animal. You will suffer in this life, in the form that you currently have. One of the ways they argue that you can kind of become a bit more evolved in your resurrection and reincarnation is the following. If you are able to approach life mindfully, that you walk into life with a tremendous amount of respect because you know where they came from. Emerson, not Emerson, but Henry David Thoreau had said something interesting about pizza. He said, I am in awe every time I eat pizza because you need wheat, you need wind, you need rain, you need the sun, you need the earth. You need all these different components to come together, work together harmoniously to make dough. So, when I was much younger and inspired by these ideas, and once in a while I would all of a sudden remember this idea about Hinduism while my mom had like salad on the table or some food, I would say the only way this cow that has been slaughtered for my sake, the only way I can turn this cow into a human, okay, is by eating my food mindfully, consciously, with a tremendous amount of awareness and care. That this cow, through me, can feel what it means to be human. It's not like you can get a piece of meat that's on your table all of a sudden magically transform it into a cow. It doesn't work that way. Okay? But through your imagination, most of the stuff is really quite imaginative. Okay? Now, at a certain point, the Hindus did something really, really, really fascinating. They said to themselves that since the world has only one thing to do, which is disrupt our interior, is there a self? Is there something we can create on the inside that remains undisturbed by the forces of the world, including death? And they said yes. And they gave birth to a word called Atman. It's like the kingdom of God within. It's like the image of God inside. It's like the light of Muhammad, as the Muslims say, or the Buddha seed inside us. Now, the problem with this self that has nothing to do with kama, or the genitalia, or the abdomen, or the chest area, is that it is untangible. You can't see it. You can't touch it. You can't taste it. And it's under an avalanche of garbage. Okay? And they liken it to an onion. What's an onion? Well, it's this, is it a vegetable? Is it a fruit? What is it? Onion. It's a vegetable, right? That has like 50 masks. So go home tonight. If you have a spare onion, just cut it. And then one by one, remove the layers until you hit the very core. And what do you find? It's empty. That emptiness, they argue, is us. Okay? And that emptiness is also God. But for you and I to get there, you need to get rid of all the history that lives inside you, made by kama, pleasures, okay? The stories or narratives or past that you have and I have through our bodies, the past identity we have through our emotions, and the emotions we have, the stories we have through our intellect. If you're able to get rid of all these narratives, get rid of it, this emptiness will come to the surface and you'll truly experience from what you are. But there's a trick. We are at a stage we call Upanishads. Upanishad means you sit at the feet of someone who's been there, who's done that. If, for example, your body desires sex, you call someone, you call a friend, and you say, Joe, you know, I just want to lay with someone. Do you know of anyone? He says, yes, I know a lot of people. Do you want tall, short, fat, thin, you know, old, young, ugly, attractive? What do you want? They're like a Costco. If you have some emotional difficulties, you call your friend and you say, I'm going through some emotional upheavals. Do you know anyone who can kind of create some healings? They say, yes, Joe Schmo. If intellectually you're trying to figure things out, okay, but it's problematic and your reflective abilities doesn't have the prowess to come up with a solution, you call someone. Just in case you come to realize that you no longer really want pleasures of the body, pleasures of the intellect, or pleasures of the abdomen or emotions, you say, I want to figure out who I am, what I am. And they say, well, there are teachers. They are called gurus. Guru comes from two words, gu and ru, which means the following. Someone who removes darkness, confusion, and replaces it with light. For example, I walk into this class rather arrogantly and I ask, do you have any questions? Someone says, well, how does one forgive oneself? How does one make big life decisions? How does one find oneself? What are we doing here? Something about you sees something about me. Okay? This is just a narrative. Okay? And says, you know what? Maybe this person has answers to my question, The very fact that you ask the question is an expression that you don't know. And the very fact that you know that you don't know creates enough humility that you raise your hand and you don't care what other people think and you don't care how other people perceive you. You say, listen, I'm a piece of shit. I want to get from point A to point B. Do you have a way? Is there a system? Okay? Now, our questions in this class mostly have to do with the physical life stuff. The Hindus argue that the teachers, gurus, have only one function. They wait and wait and wait and wait until someone no longer has questions about the physical body and its pleasures, questions about the emotional body and its pleasures, and questions about the intellectual body and its pleasures. Is there anyone who's truly looking for the kingdom of God within? And when you find that person, you sit at their feet. We call it Upanishad. Is it 8:30? Is that why people are leaving? Is what? Now, so, any questions so far? Where are you going? Hug?
Don't you get bored of, like, okay, all paths lead to boredom.
You can use it for.
Don't you get bored of just knowing that everything is going to be boring? Like knowing that all paths lead to boring and bored. You get kind of tired of, like, oh, it's all boring. It will be, it has been, it will be.
Yeah, you
I mean,
become.
like, you get bored of being bored, right? At some point. Like extra outer bored,
Extra what?
like outer boredom, bored of being bored.
So let me just, since you've talked about Hinduism for the past 2 hours, let me stop and say a couple of things about the Gospel of Judas. What is that? Is this cake? Oh. So, yeah, the answer to the question is yes. I think the more depth your pursuit has, the later boredom is going to visit you. But eventually, yeah, you get bored. When we get to Christianity, how was it? Yeah. There is a book called The Gospel of Judas. It was found in the year 2000. What makes the book interesting is, some people, I had a friend and his name was Manucher. We used to be roommates. About 5-6 years ago, my brother called late at night saying, Manucher committed suicide. He fell in love, it didn't work out, he committed suicide. I have a friend, she's tried to commit suicide a few times because her past is kind of traumatic and unprocessed for the longest time. In the Indian tradition, when a wife loses her husband and when he's being cremated, she kind of gets into the fire and dies with him as well. In other words, without my husband, life has no meaning, and without this companion, my life has no meaning. One of the interesting things about the Gospel of Judas is that he comes back hoping to find some really, really good students. And he does. He finds 12 supposedly relatively decent disciples. But he laughs at them throughout the book. He laughs at their incompetence. He laughs at their doubts. He laughs at their immaturity. He also comes to realize that despite all the things that he keeps telling them, and you can find this also in the Gospel of Mark, he comes to realize that despite all the things that he tells them, they just don't listen. Not only his own disciples closest to him don't listen, but other people don't. The Jewish folks don't listen, the rabbis don't listen, the Pharisees don't listen, nobody listens. And he says, well, if nobody listens and I have all this wisdom inside me and I can't give my wisdom to anyone, what use is my life, really? What am I here for? And then he goes to Judas, who happens to be perhaps his most faithful disciple in that particular book, i.e. the Gospel of Judas, and looks at Judas and says, listen, I have found life to be most meaningless, and I've found people to be most callous and incompetent. So do me a favor. Give me to the Romans. Let them kill me. I'd rather just have my spirit go back to God, and you guys can have my flesh. And so I guess, and you can find this in a variety of different traditions. The other person that comes to mind is Rumi. For those of you who may not know, Rumi happens to have written the Persian Quran called the Masnavi. It's 6 volumes of poetry. It's filled with wisdom and knowledge of life and knowledge of the self. And so what is interesting about him is there are 4 different moments in his life where he gets completely bored. Despite being creative, despite being spiritual, he comes to realize that there is nothing that life has to offer him. Nothing can offer him. So he gets depressed. And he sits in his room, doesn't come out, doesn't write poetry, doesn't speak to anyone. He says, I'm looking for someone who has a spark inside. And the first person that he finds after 2 years is someone who can't speak right, who doesn't know Arabic, can't read the Quran, mispronounces almost everything under the sun. And he says, I don't really care what he's on the outside, what lives inside him. It's like the sun. I see it and I can worship it. And so when he dies, Rumi again falls into depression. And then there comes a point where he can no longer write. He no longer wants to talk. He gets sick and he says, I want to die now. And he did. He dies. He does die. So there comes a point, regardless how spiritual you may be. I mean, consider the life of Moses, for those of you in this class who may not know. I don't even know if Moses actually existed, because in the Syrian tradition, there was a guy named Mysis who did the same thing that Moses did. But all that aside, there comes a point where Moses looks at his brother Aaron and says, I rescued them from the Pharaoh. I opened the sea for them. They're not at a good place, but they're really stupid people. I don't want to be around them anymore. Aaron, here's my staff. I'm gone. No one knows where he went, but he just left. Life had nothing to offer him. People had nothing to offer him. But I think the bigger, the more depth your quest has, the longer it takes you to be visited by boredom. That's all. Yeah. Anyone else before we... Micah, right? Mackay. Just give me one thought. Okay, that's good. Anyway, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
So it's a mention boredom.
Yeah.
And the thought that I keep coming back to is that nothing really matters in a way. And because nothing matters, you might as well just do something. While you're here, let it waste time.
Do you have children? when you have them, you will experience this. They get bored very, very quickly. And their boredom is kind of innocent. When adults get bored, they're much more cunning. They have to be cunning. So we use philosophy, we use religion, we use other people, we use like whatever life can offer us to distract ourselves from boredom. So our cunningness when it comes to boredom is far more dangerous. You know, with kids, you take them to the park. With kids, you take them to a movie. You know, we are very, very different in our boredom. We actually hurt people. We create relationships, we create attachments, and then we abandon those people. That's what we do. You know, so you can't just do anything. Yeah. Anyways, anyone else? No? Yeah, yeah.
So if we find ourselves bored, is it best to self-reflect?
When you are bored, first, it takes a while for you to get to a place of reflection, because when you get bored, you're a little irritated, you're frustrated. Then out of frustration, you try to find ways to get rid of boredom, whether it's a movie, whether it's like going out for dinner, whatever the case may be. If you're unsuccessful in finding something meaningful, okay, to remove boredom, then self-reflection. What boredom really is this pit of emptiness. That right now you come to class, let's say you are interested. In 2 weeks' time, you come to class and you're not interested, which means that there is no longer anything I can offer you. And there is nothing anyone in this class can offer you. This becomes a container of emptiness. And you just sit there. And if you're unable to kind of manage your boredom in a mature way, then you become angry. Then your body begins to move around. Then after 10 minutes, you pack up and you leave. Okay, self-reflection is at a much, much, much later stage where you say, why do I want to distract myself? What should I do that's meaningful? You know, but that takes a while. But boredom is always, I mean, it is kind of a loss of meaning and a loss of purpose. And you are grieving without really knowing. That's why it's always good when you have kids to have lots of toys around. You know, you don't want to get them bored because they will torment you. Yeah. Anyone else? You guys look exhausted. I mean, you look really bad. Well, have a nice evening. Tomorrow, hopefully, we can finish up Hinduism and move into Buddhism. Thank you. You take care. Good to see you.